going on, guys? We are back with another video, and today we have are we witnessing the greatest peak in NBA history? Probably about Jokic.
What does the best version of the best basketball player we've ever seen look like? Many fans would point out Michael Jordan from 1988 to 1991 as the absolute best version of a player they've ever seen. LeBron from 2010 to 2013 might also be the best version of any player in the game's history. But there have been a lot of great players who have had a lot of incredible seasons. 2000 Shaq, 2016 Curry. Maybe your choice is MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, Hakeem in 94, or 03 Duncan, or maybe Bird in 86. But maybe a better way to visualize this question is this: a chart of the 100 greatest 3-year peaks in modern NBA history, with box plus minus on the y-axis and win shares per 48 on the x-axis. The further up a player is, the more productive and efficient their peak was. The further right, the larger their impact was on their team's winning. And even towards the bottom of this chart, you'll find some great names like Ray Allen at 78, DeMarcus Cousins at 66. Keep going up and you'll find perennial all-stars and franchise players like Jason Tatum, who is currently in the 46th highest peak over the last 40-plus seasons. Paul George just above him, and Vince Carter at 40.
What the fuck?
Now, this isn't some perfect method to measure players. Most advanced metrics tend to undervalue defense and overvalue offense, but overall, this gives us a great picture of how impactful players were at the peak of their powers relative to the rest of the league. And at this point, we reach all-time great peaks. The guys who can carry an entire team. Luka at 15, Magic Johnson at 11, Stephen Durant at 7 and 6, James Harden and his best 3 seasons.
Is this all time? I wasn't listening.
Giannis with the 4th highest individual peak, and head and shoulders above everyone else. With almost identical peak numbers are Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Clearly, the two best peaks we've ever seen.
Don't go up more.
Until Nikola Jokic.
Oh my God!
Completely blew the lid
I knew that was gonna happen.
One player can
I knew
be
that
to
was
his
gonna
team.
happen.
Is Nikola Jokic the best version of any basketball player ever?
Bro, fuck, dude. It'd be cold up in.
You know when a player is truly impacting the game.
Oh yeah,
they
why?
Can have great numbers, but that doesn't always translate to winning basketball. You can use the eye test, but our eyes can be deceiving. However, there is one surefire way to tell. And that's when a player is so important and so valuable that their team is utterly lost without them. Every time they step out of the game, everything falls apart. We saw this with LeBron at points in his career. We've seen this many times with Steph.
They getting old, bro.
Days ago, we saw this with Nikola Jokic. In their recent matchup against the Warriors, Jokic started the game, and the Nuggets got out to a 6-point lead before he checked out for the first time with 1:32 left in the first quarter. Now pay attention to the score and the time left on the clock. By the time Jokic re-entered the game, 5 minutes later, the Nuggets were down 5 points. Jokic helped the Nuggets overcome that deficit, and by the time he checked out again at the end of the third, the Nuggets were back up by 5. By the time he returned to the game, just 2.5 minutes later,
he's crazy.
the Nuggets were down 3
lie.
points. Jokic played the rest of the game, and the Nuggets ended up winning by 4. Jokic was on the bench for just 8 minutes of this game, was a net plus 42 points, and the Nuggets won this game by just 4.
He's fucking
crazy. And that
crazy,
pretty much sums up how important Nikola Jokic is on a basketball court.
He is crazy.
Pair the impact he makes on his team's success with stat lines that make you question everything you've ever known about basketball. And you have yourself a player who is beginning to enter conversations that some fans aren't quite ready to have.
He's putting out Westbrook numbers as a big, bro.
Are we witnessing the highest peak in the history of the NBA? Some people think so. We're now going on 5 seasons of this guy being the best player on the planet. And despite 3 MVPs and 4 seasons, the man has somehow found a way to take his game to even another level. Is there still a gap between Jokic and the highest peaks in basketball history? Or is this version of Jokic peaking higher?
Bro, just doing a fantasy average is like 70 fucking points. He's definitely the best this season. 100%.
So far this season, when Jokic is on the floor, the Nuggets score 31 more points per 100 possessions, which means Jokic is single-handedly the difference between the Nuggets being one of the best offenses in NBA history and one of the worst. But the absence of any great offensive player will wreak havoc
That's
on a
hard
team.
to believe.
It
I
should
believe
be
without
expected that
Jokic,
a
we're
system will
fucking worse
struggle
than
when
him,
you
bro.
take out their most valuable and important player. From
Fucking
2015 to 2017, the 3-year offensive peak of Steph Curry's career, the Warriors scored 15 more points per 100 possessions when he was on the court versus when he wasn't. And Steph's offensive value throughout this 3-year stretch had become the gold standard in the modern NBA. According to Cleaning the Glass, which has a database that dates back to 2004, no other player over the last 21 seasons has been able to match Steph's offensive impact. LeBron came relatively close from 2008
It's too hard.
to
He's
2010,
hitting five
elevating the
threes,
Cavs' offense by
15.
13.5 points per 100 possessions. Peak Chris Paul and Steve Nash were the catalyst to 2 incredible offenses. But even amongst offensive juggernauts, Steph was in a league of his own. Until Jokic hit his peak, where he has been the most impactful offensive player over the last 2 decades, and it's not even remotely close.
Oh, that's crazy.
Over the last 3 seasons, the Nuggets scored 23.3 more points per 100 possessions when Jokic is on the court. That is a larger gap than most starting fives have over their bench unit. Jokic is making this big of an impact by himself. And we already knew that he was approaching, if not already at the level of some of the best, most impactful players in NBA history. But to really enter the conversation, Jokic first had to do what every all-time great must. Prove that he could be this good over and over and over again. That his dominance transcended who you put around him, and that his impact wasn't some 3-year abnormality. And he's now done that. He's way past the point of skepticism, and now entering the point where we have
don't even fuck with basketball, bro.
Absolutely mind-bending stat lines. Basketball Reference cites a season where a player achieves a box plus minus of 10 or more as an all-time great season. As they put it, think peak Jordan or LeBron. And only 16 players in the history of the NBA have achieved this mark for a single season.
He's gonna do it 3 times.
16 players have achieved this mark in multiple seasons. Those players being LeBron, Jordan, Giannis, and Chris Paul. Nikola Jokic has a box plus minus of 10 or more for his entire career.
It's fucking
easily
insane.
The highest BPM of any player in NBA history. In fact, there have only been 8 individual seasons where a player logged a box plus minus of at least 12. LeBron James did it once back in 2009, the most productive and high usage season of his entire career. Michael Jordan did it twice, once back in 1988, arguably the greatest individual season in NBA history and the best statistical season of his career, and again in 1991. This season, Nikola Jokic is on path to accomplishing this feat as well, joining an exclusive club with the 2 greatest players of all time. But he's been in the club for a while now, because he also did it last season, and the season before that.
How the fuck you edit that out, Jimmy? What the fuck?
And the season before that one. 5 straight seasons of basketball, equal or better than the very best seasons of LeBron and Jordan. But you don't have to seek out metrics to see how Jokic has mastered the game.
Crazy.
Every single time he steps on the court, it is clear that he is just simply better than everyone else. From the top of the key all the way to the rim, there isn't anywhere on the court where Jokic can't pick apart a team.
What was he doing in Serbia all these years?
It's ad-free YouTube.
Are you fucking serious?
Exclusive access to all.
Sorry,
Jokic
guys.
is virtually automatic.
I'm
He's
keeping
got
that in
size
the
and
side
strength
question.
to abuse even the best big men in
Like,
the
how
league,
the
because
fuck?
as
What was he
everyone
doing in
tailoring their
Serbia?
game to spacing and athleticism and speed, Jokic has gone the other direction. The size of
How do you
big
do that?
footwork and touch around the rim that most defenders in the NBA today have no idea what to do with. For most big, punishing centers, this is the extent of their expertise. A game built to dominate around the rim. And there's 2 counters for players like this. Try to
such a
push their
soft
game away from the
touch.
rim, or collapse and force them to make a play. 2 counters that have been relatively effective since the beginning of time. Except Jokic will feast on both of these options. As the best playmaker in the league, collapsing or sending multiple defenders at Jokic doesn't work. He'll find the open man and make you pay with a 3-ball. The man is sick. If anything, this is probably his preference. Send help. We wanted the 3 anyway.
God
so
damn.
as of late, teams have
I know
tried
they already
option
showed
number
that,
2,
but like
force
shit.
his game away from the rim.
Like
and this
AD?
has worked in the past. As we saw in last year's playoffs, teams forced Jokic to shoot the outside shot, and he struggled quite a bit. 26% on 4 threes a game in the postseason. This was the chink in his armor. Well,
got
at
him.
least it was.
Nah,
Because
don't
this
tell me
season,
he's doing it.
Jokic is shooting 50% from 3 on 4.2 attempts per game.
What?
50%.
We're fucked.
The second most
Nah, he's
efficient
capping,
three-point
bro.
shooter.
What? Vooch should not be doing this. Who is AJ Green? Is that Jalen Green? He's probably on like 5 attempts, I ain't gonna lie. Kyrie, 47% with Kyrie is tough. Vooch don't really probably shoot that many. Karras is back up. Norm definitely shoots that many. 48% from 3, and he definitely let me see threes per game.
In the league, among all players,
dude, this is
at least
fucking
4
crazy.
threes a game. So he can crush you around the rim, and you don't even want him to get the ball down there.
They might win another
he's
chip.
He's now one of the most efficient three-point shooters in the league, so we can't let him operate however he wants out there. So let's play him close. Put a big body on him, deny the passing lanes, and get physical. Again, a tactic that worked against Jokic about as well as any other. Except that doesn't work either, because Jokic
what's their record in the West?
To put the ball on the floor and go downhill, which shouldn't be possible for a guy his size.
Alright, that's been moving slow as well,
and
though.
Once he gets to the middle of the floor, well, now you've lost. In the NBA, a player's gravity is a concept that has really become one of the most valuable things to possess. This is what offensive gravity looks like. When Jokic gets to this spot, the defense completely sinks in and bends however he wants it to. From here, he becomes the most lethal offensive weapon the game has ever seen.
The fuck is this?
From here,
nah, hold on.
He becomes the most lethal offensive
motherfucker's
weapon
a
the game
wizard,
has
bro.
ever seen. With the size,
as much as I hate him, bro, it's
skills
just
to do whatever he wants. From this spot, there really isn't anything
just too
preventing
tough.
Jokic from at least getting the shot that he or his team wants. Again, the best passer and playmaker in the league.
Nah, he
so
definitely
he'll
is
find the
one of the
open
best
man
passers
if
in the
and
league.
when you close on him. Give him space, and he's capable of hitting the shot all day long. Or maybe he'll just put his back to the basket and back
Trae
you
Young, and
into
Luka.
oblivion while
Those
you
are my
question
top
if
3
all that
passers.
time you spent in the weight room was really worth it. Peak Jokic doesn't really have any weaknesses on offense. At the moment, not only is there no consistent, tangible way of stopping him, it looks like there isn't even a way to slow him down. And although this can be said about a few players who hit all-time high peaks, there may not be another player who is as consequential to their team and its success as Nikola Jokic is. So far this season, Jokic touches the ball 113 times
11 and 8.
per game. That's any time he receives a pass or grabs a
that's-
rebound.
that's-
a mark
that's-
that leads
that's-
the NBA
that's
by
a
a
lot.
country mile. But
Bro,
the
all these
crazy
dudes are
part
point
is that
guards.
the Nuggets only have 100 possessions per game this season, which means on average, Jokic touches the ball not just every single Nuggets possession, but multiple times on several possessions. In fact, since the NBA introduced tracking data back in 2014, here are some all-time
Jimmy, don't hit us
and
with
how
this shit.
involved they were in their team's system
Well, I like
throughout their
Embiid.
3-year peak.
I like
how many
Embiid.
touches per possession they were getting. And across the board, all of them are floating between
Luka's crazy.
0.6 and 0.8 touches per team possession.
It's surprising there's
With
only
LeBron,
2 guards on
Harden,
this
and Luka
list.
carrying
3
the
guards.
heaviest load of anyone. Luka even approaching a 1-to-1 touch-to-possession ratio throughout the last 3 seasons. The Mavericks needing him to be involved in nearly every possession.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
and
you,
still,
bro, you don't pay him
Jokic
money
is
for
on a whole nother level,
holy
where he is
shit.
being utilized on virtually every single possession in every single game for 3 straight seasons. So not only does Jokic statistically contribute more
Bro,
to
no
his
one's
team's
even
winning,
passing
the load he is
0.95.
burdened with dwarfs even the greatest high-impact players over the
That's
last
disgusting.
decade. Jokic isn't just the most important piece in Denver's offense, he is Denver's offense. Which brings us to the one glaring pitfall for Jokic's case as truly the highest peak of any player ever.
DeAndre, bro.
Defense. A solid defensive player at his best and a net negative player at his worst. And this is the one factor that may prevent
his
him from
offense
peaking
just makes
higher
up for
than
it.
anyone else. There's 2 sides of the ball. He's the best we've ever seen on one side, and he's okay on the other side. Meanwhile, there have been many great players that have been incredible on both ends. Mike, LeBron, Kareem, Duncan, Kobe, Hakeem, even Shaq and Bird were great defensive players at the peak of their powers. Jordan was almost as impactful on offense as Jokic is, while being one of the best defensive players in the league at his peak. Same goes with LeBron.
Jimmy kinda shitting on
because
him.
most advanced metrics neglect defense or measure it incorrectly, the impact they had on the game doesn't quite translate to the numbers we see on the back end. For example, this season, even the best all-in-one metric, estimated plus minus, has Jokic in the 92nd percentile on defense, with an EPM of plus 1.4, ahead of players like Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum. This same metric has peak DPOY candidate LeBron at a defensive EPM of just plus 1.2, which is worse defensively than Jokic this season. And it doesn't take an analyst to know Jokic and 2013 LeBron are worlds apart on the defensive end. Where Jokic gets the benefit from virtually every metric we look at, some other players may not. And I don't know if unprecedented offensive mastery is enough to overcome the fact that Jokic is considerably worse on defense than others are. At least, I don't think so. But when I actually watch Jokic play, it's not the metrics, but my eyes that tell me he's influencing and impacting the game just as much as anyone I've ever seen. It feels a bit weird to put Jokic in the same conversation with a peak Jordan or a peak LeBron, two players who have essentially been levitating above everyone else. As valuable as Jokic is, I witnessed a man carry second-rate teams to the finals over and over and over. And contending with the greatest player of all time is a task that no one has ever been able to pull off. But everything, from the metrics to the eye test, says he is truly that caliber of player right now. The man has been the best player in the world for half a decade. So ask yourself, how many players in NBA history have been the best player for more than 2, maybe 3 years at a time? There has been a lot of guys who've worn the crown, but how many held on to it?
Jokic might be the best player of the decade for sure.
The list isn't very long. Kareem, Bird, Magic, Jordan, Shaq.
There ain't many
Duncan,
best players of the
LeBron,
decade, but he might be the best player of the decade, bro.
In the league's history? Well, whatever list you came up with, Jokic is now on it. And he isn't just the best player on the planet today. He is one of the best versions of any player.
Like 6-year Cooper flag. He's not doing this. Was that it? Thank you for the video, Jimmy. Appreciate you. Ah! Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Peace out. Oh my God.